Hey guys, Waterfowler 41 here, and we got our next product in front of us. So basically what we're looking at here is Rigid Industries fog light LED cube conversion kit for the GMC Sierra. It fits 2014, 2015 GMC 1500 Sierras, and basically what this does is it's a bracket that goes on the front and the back of the OEM housing, and it basically sandwiches in, and you got to trim some of the plastic bezel on the truck right now. And then this bracket basically sandwiches on each side of the plastic bezel, and then it gives you a mounting bracket to put in some LED cubes. Now these are designed, and just like I would assume all rigid stuff is designed to accept rigid products, and basically anything that mounts in the same location as rigid products. I didn't know that when I ordered it, but it turns out that the rigid D2, or I believe they're the dually cube LEDs, they have lower mounting points than what you would pick up off of Amazon. So this is the OZ USA LED cube that I'll be using on my truck, and what you'll see is, so basically that's how it should sit on the truck once the kit's installed. But on the side, my Amazon Special LED cube has the mounting hole up high in the middle of the lamp, whereas the D2 dualies, or the dualies that rigid cells that are made for this bracket, have the mounting hole on the, I would say probably the lower quarter portion of the lamp, probably making it a pretty easy bolt on. So again, I didn't know that when I bought them. I knew these brackets were from Rigid and they're probably pretty good quality. They were 65 bucks though, and I think anything over 40 bucks for just a couple pieces of metal that's sandwiched on each side, that still requires some cutting, I think is a bit excessive. But I had a coupon code and I had some gift cards I had to burn up at Summit Racing. So this is what I went and bought. Then I went on Amazon and bought these guys, I think for 50, 60 bucks. And this is the OZ USA Flood Cube. So if you look inside, the lenses are, they got diffusers on them. So basically the LED will shine through it and then spread out. I wanted the fog one because I think the GMC suffers from not enough fog light. And I got LED lamps right now in my factory housing, and I think they're just shitty. So I think this is going to be a nice upgrade. But it does require a little bit of work. So like I said before, when you buy this thing, the rigid lights typically have their mounting hole lower, and we had to make some modifications. So the last couple of nights kind of toying around with a couple bracket ideas, and I think I came up with a solution that will work with our application here. So this is the driver's side bracket, and I've already modified this one. And basically what it is, I went to Menards and I bought some, what are these called? Corner braces. And what these did is basically lifted up my mounting hole. So if you pop that guy in there and line everything up, that center hole lines up with the hole that was on this corner brace. So really the only modifications I had to do to make this work was, I had to drill one hole on each side for the first screw to mount it, and then I drilled a hole in this corner brace to make it mount inside this channel here, and I'll show you what those look like. So basically this is what the channel or the corner braces look like before you buy, or before you start cutting them up, and then this is what it looked like afterwards. So I had to trim up a little bit off, and then I had to drill an additional hole here, and then on the rigid brackets I had to drill a second hole up here to make sure that nothing's gonna spin or anything. And then these bad boys are the OZ USA fog lights. So that's OZ, the 4D pods and their floods. I don't know if this part number makes any sense, but bought them on Amazon for about 50 bucks. I've had pretty good luck with Amazon LEDs. Really the only thing you got to be concerned about is them leaking, getting condensation in there. So what I do with all my Amazon lights that I buy is I'll back these screws off, take this bezel off, and I'll throw a bead of silicone around here, because that's where the water is going to get in. And it's not going to be in the summer when it gets in, it's going to be in the winter when the water seeps in here, freezes, opens this up, and then melts, and then goes back down in here. So if you throw a nice healthy silicone bead in there, mush it down, and then wipe it up. It's okay if it spreads here, you're not going to see that. But making sure you get a nice healthy bead of silicone in there is going to extend these things, and it's going to make sure that you keep the water out of it. There's really not much to this LED. I mean, if you look at it, it's probably that much actual fixture, and the rest of these are heat sink. So, you know, they're pretty simple. You can't really mess it up. But again, just back off these screws and we'll throw a bead of silicone in there, and then we'll call it a day. But these are I believe they're 4 3-watt LEDs. I'm hoping that I could drive with these on with traffic coming at me, especially if I aim them down low enough, and that's again why I got the diffuse type. You can get the spotlight ones, but I think with oncoming traffic you're going to be blinding them. So hopefully these work out well. I've never used them. I haven't powered them on yet. This is my first time really messing with LED cubes. I messed with a couple of the LED bars you saw in my last couple of videos. But again, first time with the cubes. And one nice touch on these guys is they come with a wiring harness. So what we'll do is we'll clip off the factory one and we'll tie this in there, and then everything just buttons up, and it's a pretty simple quick connect, and then you're good to go. Alright guys, so before we install these on the truck, I just wanted to show you something that I do real quick with a lot of the lights I get off of Amazon. And I've had pretty good luck. If you stick with like the big names, so Auxbeam, OZ, USA, which is what these are, and then there's one more, I forget the name of it right now. But if you stick with those ones and you just kind of take a few extra steps in the beginning, the lights will go a long way. So what I was talking about is, this is what the lights look like, when you buy them. And then before I put them on a truck or anything like that, I always pull off this piece, which is right here. So I'll back all those screws off, then I'll pull off this cap. And what that leaves you with is the lens, there's a rubber gasket, and then the LEDs and everything, and the reflectors and everything else inside here. So the reason I do this is because a lot of these cheaper LEDs, what they'll end up doing over time is, especially in the winter, is when snow or ice gets on them and it melts, it'll get down in here, and then when it freezes again, it'll expand and basically crack the seal on here. So what I do is I throw a bead of silicone where this piece of plastic touches the rubber part, and then I throw the cap, the rim thing here, back on the light, so it kind of cinches everything down, and I let it dry before I install it. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to throw a bead of silicone along that rubber and plastic junction there, and then we should be good to go. Okay, so we went ahead and threw that clear bead of silicone around here. And it's okay if it gets on the lens, it's clear. At the end of the day, you're not going to see it. This stuff is a bitch to use. And then basically the next step then from there is to carefully place this bad boy down on top of everything. Let everything seat in. So you can see a little bit on the sides here. It's not the end of the world. Alright, we're good. So we're going to tighten these up, and then we'll start on the driver's side, and then we'll go start installing the brackets on the truck. Alright, there we go. We got everything siliconed up. You can see some of it came out around the edge. That's fine. That's not the end of the world. You don't see that. That's just some cleaner popping out there. So yeah, it looks good. And here's a quick last view of the custom brackets I made. Again, it's just an L bracket. I think what I'm gonna do is give everything kind of a one last tighten up here. So tighten these bad boys, do the same thing on the passenger side, and then I think we're ready to start pulling off the stock fog lights. The rigid instructions say start with the driver's side, and I assume that's what the D means. There's a P on this one and a D there, so we're gonna start with this guy. Alright, so we're underneath the driver's side of the truck, and we're going to start on that fog light. So the first step is to remove the plug. This plug here goes to the back of the light that's inside the housing. And then there's these, there's three of these little plug things that we're supposed to use needle nose pliers to pop those out. So there's one there, there's one up on top, and then there's one in the far corner. So it'll be easier to get at once I get this plug out of the way. And if I'm going to pull that plug out, I might as well pull the LED light bulb that I have in there too, get that out of the way, and then we should be able to start freeing up everything. Alright, so that is what the fog light popped out. So this is basically what you're working with on the back there. So these three plugs were pushed into those three holes, and all you had to do is pinch the tangs on each side of them, and they popped out pretty easily. You did not need to use a needle nose pliers, and it was damn near impossible to get a needle nose pliers in there, but this is just the round fog light housing that popped right in there. So I think we're off to a good start. So I think the next thing now is to pull this ring out. This comes out, and I think there's tabs on the back of it that we're gonna have to undo, and then that should pop out pretty easily. So let's take a look at the back real quick. Yeah, so around the outside of that, looks like a bunch of tangs hold that center cup in. So I'm going to have to use 2 hands to pop them out. But again, they look easy to get at. This is by far one of the easier projects I've done. Alright, so we got the ring out. This is the ring. It's, again, just a couple tangs. And all you got to do to get it out is just to push them in. And then it helps if you have another hand on this side pulling at it at the same time. So this ring basically just fit right in like that. And then we got that popped out. So I believe the next step then is to go through and cut this cup out. And then there's additional cutting we need to do as well. But then the rigid plate just fits right in this little hole. And then we're close to being done with the driver's side. Alright, so now we're going to work on cutting this guy out. I think we're going to cut the ring out and then just kind of keep test fitting it till we got it fit in there. Let's go ahead and fire this bad boy up and get rocking and rolling on it. One thing I want to check is up top there's a hole here. I don't know if you can see it from there. So up on top of the fog light housing there's a hole, and I don't know what that looks like in the end here. So it looks like that plate just kind of sits below it. So we'll cut that lip here. We'll cut down to that lip, and we'll probably do that by hand just to make it a little bit more exact. But this thing's almost out. Now the good thing about this this plastic is it cuts like butter. Alright, so we got all the lip off, and really the whole point of cutting all that stuff out was A, to make room for the light, but also so this bracket can sit flush. So with kind of the fat end up to the top right and the wider and more obtuse angle down here, it fits in there pretty good. So remember that hole up here, you just basically take that corner of that hole and just cut straight down, and you want to get all that lip where that ring was mounted into, you want to get that all cut off. But yeah, fits good. So I believe the next step now is to mark the holes, these 4 holes here, and then drill some holes through there, and then basically sandwich that new light right up into here. So we got to splice in the new connector onto the old stock one. So when I cut this off, I'm going to leave some room on here so there's a little bit of a pigtail left on the stock harness, just in case we need to turn back one day. I mean, you can always get new plastic things here, and I'll keep the rest of the light. So just in case we need to return this to stock, it'll be pretty simple. And I believe this plastic bezel here is about 60 bucks a side, so it is not the end of the world. So let's go ahead, and I think what we're going to do is real quick drill these holes, and then I'll hop up underneath and we'll do the electrical real quick, and then it should be smooth sailing on this side, and then we'll hop over to the passenger side. Alright, so we went ahead and drilled up everything. So basically what I did is I took this bracket and then I pushed it as far over to this side as possible, because I kind of want everything flush on this side. You don't really see the inside here, you do, and you just kind of want everything clean looking. So I pushed it over to the right side and then marked the holes, went back and drilled them. So it doesn't need to be a giant hole, just enough to fit the screws that they send with this bracket through. So what we're going to do now is just test fit the back. Actually what we're going to do is hook up the pigtail that came with those. So this is the pigtail that we're going to hook up in place of the factory harness. So what I'm going to do is cut this kind of further down here and then just crimp this guy on there. But what I need to figure out is there's 2 colors on here. It looks like there's a purple and a black. I'm going to guess the black is ground, so we'll take a chance on that one. And then yeah, so what I'll do is I'll just pop these guys in here and then just test it out real quick before I cut everything off. Alright, so we got everything wired up. Let me show you what I cut off. So here's the stock harness, and there is it looks like a purple and brown. This is your positive lead, and then the black is your negative. So on the harness that came with the lights, I just took the black, hooked it up to the black on here, and then there's red on here. Red went to positive. So we're going to go ahead and test those real quick. And just to give you a heads up, I was test fitting it, and my custom brackets I made were too high and they were hitting a piece of metal in there, so I just took them and bent them around like that. I still have access to these middle mounting screws, but you know, these things are out of the way now of hitting that bracket up on top. So let's plug it in. It works. Let's finish up mounting it. So I'm going to go behind here and we're going to, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know the best route to do this, but I think what I should do is just tighten up everything just to where I think it is. This still has some play. You can kind of move the light around a little bit. So I'm going to tighten up all these things and then we're going to go ahead and throw it in there. Really, the last thing to do is just line up these holes and then back on the screws. I have a feeling this one's going to be kind of a pain in the ass. Potentially this one, but other than that, everything should fit fine. So we'll go up underneath and just kind of straighten up everything now. Hey guys, we are on a new day, fresh battery here. My battery ran out on the driver's side, so I just said screw it, let's come back to the passenger side the next day. But I did want to show you what you're actually cutting out when you are cutting the fog light housing up. So really all you're trying to do is get rid of this lip here. You want that rigid plate to sit flat on here, and the only way to do that is by cutting around here. So what you'll do is we'll cut straight down from the opening down into this branch and then just kind of slowly follow it all the way around. And I'm using my Multi-Max tool, which I feel like I've used it on every project these days, but it's a nice cutter and it makes a nice clean cut around the outside here. And then you got to use the handsaw just to get the tricky stuff in here so you're not nicking here. But again, at the end of the day, all you want is that plate to sit flush on this portion of the fog light housing. So you just want to cut this lip out. Alright guys, we took a little break there and now we're back, but I just wanted to show you the passenger side. So it's prepped, it's ready to go with the exception of the plastic piece. So you see there's that plastic bracket in there and I'm not sure what it's for. I'm going to look in there before I cut it out, but basically what I'm going to do is take tin snips. Let's see if I can do this. I'm going to take tin snips and just run it along this edge here and just kind of get this stuff out of the way. It shouldn't need to be cut too far, probably 1 or 2 inches back. But I think that would be all you need. But that's what it looks like in there. So that piece needs to be cut because it interferes with the heatsink on the LEDs.
Alright guys, I don't know how well you can see this, but passenger side's all bolted up. We're all good to go. Custom brackets had to get bent in order to make room for that guy. But this is that piece of plastic that we had to cut from earlier. I cut a little bit too much off, but this is kind of showing you what, how far it's in the way. Probably 2.5 inches of it. Let me see if this 2.5 inches of it had to be trimmed off to make way for the right side of that passenger light. But other than that, everything went in pretty easily. Use the wheel wells to your advantage here. Go in through there with your sockets and everything, because it is kind of a pain in the ass to get those 2 bolts up on the top. And then
there's the passenger side light. Everything mounted up pretty nicely, very flush. Then our driver's side light. And we'll fire it up here. Alright, so everything's fired up and everything's functioning. So I have a HID kit in there, so these should match it pretty good. The LEDs I had in there just sucked before, but I think these are a nice upgrade. Let's see. So you can see the diffuser on the light, spreading out the light there. And there's the driver's side. Hope you enjoyed the install.